Hey everyone, welcome to the Awaken 24 podcast. I'm your host, Lee, and today we got a very, very good episode. It's not mistaking fantastical stories for the reality of experiencing things the way they are. Long title, it's a lot to get to, so let's get right to it. The way we experience the world is through our senses, 6 of them: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. These are the frameworks we use to form notions of the self, personality, and characteristics. Through these, we form perspective, and perspective becomes the way we experience life. When we read stories or watch movies depicting fantastical happenings that seem outside of what we know as reality, we tend to affix an expectation on how such a thing should indeed happen to us. What happens is the actual experience is missed. We miss it because the expectation of it is a particular way. Little box. We frame things, put them in a box, and it has to meet that, right? When the experience doesn't meet our framework, meaning it doesn't match the way we imagined it from what we read or watched, the intensity of the happening lessens, gets weaker, doesn't seem so important. And this is due to the standards we formed at the time of receiving such an idea. That fantastical impression, the amazing, almost impossible quality of it, becomes the standard for how anything in that genre of experience is supposed to be. And the reason for this is very simple. The person's view of their own world, their self, their immediate surroundings, their experience of life and others, mainly people, when that someone is unsatisfied with the world they have cultivated, anything portrayed as amazing must feel like it would be totally life-changing. It has to push them into a completely different stream of long-term experiences altogether. And this is ultimately untrue. And here's an example. A person reads a story, watches a movie about something in the spiritual framework. They see it, imagine it, and assume the information received is absolute, believing it must be that way. That's grasping, it's clinging, it's forming perspectives, right? Then when such a happening does occur, but doesn't fit the expected course of appearance, they overlook it, right? It's not that important. It's not that strong. Maybe it's like this, maybe it's not. But this can happen with anything. Let's look at it through meditation lens. A person reads someone who meditated and awakened, attained enlightenment maybe, and became aware of how their energy moves. Or they hear stories of seeing beings without human form or animal form, like ghosts and spirits and such. And the way the storyteller describes things, they shape a beautiful expectation about how one should see or experience similar things. But when awareness arises, its characteristics are formed by the person experiencing it. So, it just goes right back to the person's mind. These things originally aren't fixed or absolute. They're simply the stream of happenings flowing through the framework of the mind. In their raw form, they have no characteristics. And for the sake of conversation, we'll call it a stream of energy. And when that energy meets the framework of a mind, it takes shape, characteristics, and presence equal to that mind. So basically, however a person can comprehend something is exactly how that something will be acknowledged. This is how states are experienced. So now that we see this breakdown, we can realize something really clearly. We'll realize this, that despite fantastical stories, the experience of these things is based on the mind of the person. And the story told to us is usually full of descriptive words to just engage the mind, to get someone to imagine what the idea is and to pique interest. It's important to know why we experience the world the way we do so we don't get fooled by our own mind. Those so-called spiritual experiences, it's the same concept here. That they can be totally missed entirely if we rely on other people's framework, or we rely on observed characteristics of such things. And the experience is of that person's mind only, and it is an absolute on how all these things will be for everybody else. Even though some general characteristics may be similar, the depth and appearance of how such things show up will be different for each person because the notions formed in one's mind are so different. So even the person explaining the happening they had, the experience they had, and all their fantastical, all their fantasy, all their, descriptions and beauty and how they shape the whole image in your mind, that's really because that's going through their mind. They're sharing that with you and exaggerating, building it up to get you hooked, to get you engaged. There might be some points of truth and happening that is kind of general, standard in what their story is, but it's not exactly 100% flat out exactly the way it is. We watch a movie, we think, oh, that's how the spirit realm is, or that's how astral projection is, or that's how special powers are. They're exaggerated all the time because it's just more engaging that way. If we talked about exactly how these things are in truth, without all the special fluff talk, everything is very simple. And that's why the reality of experience must be met as it is, not as it was told. Okay. And as it is, let's get this clear. It just means without the biases you're experiencing things with, right? Without your stories. It also means exactly that, without the stories that we place on situations that, we're meeting. So don't get confused. Okay. And don't get confused with this when it comes to abuse. right? If you're getting abused, if there's some physical, mental, emotional abuse, definitely seek help straight up. Don't go in there and try to do some contemplative practice on, is this really happening? If you really feel threatened, go out and go get some help. And once you sought help and you're safe and everything's good, apply perspective checks to see how you are in the world. Like you want to be able to just fix your perspective so you can see the world from a better space, and pick yourself up and see the good, because we can do that. Okay. Sometimes if we don't take a perspective check, we can hurt ourselves more. We can save our lives, save our emotions, save our mind. Go seek help, and then do a perspectives check. Make sure you're all right. But in regards to spiritual experiences, these things are individual based. It's just straight up that way. And they're called spiritual experiences, spiritual generally, because they appear outside of the normal framework of how you see the world. They're also shaped by how you expect the experiences to be. The mind is like an ever-present stream of both doing and non-doing, because it's like both. None of them are true, and both of them are true. So what's entertained becomes what plays out, what's experienced. And here we have to recognize that the usual world, what we call mundane and what we call spiritual, are one and the same. The boundary between the two is based on the cultivated framework through our six senses. So, in other words, what, why, and how you are used to feeling, seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, and thinking becomes the appearance of the things you experience. One person may enter a deep state of concentration through meditative single-minded focus, come to a state where they receive information from another being. In that moment, they are fully in acknowledgement mode, meaning they're not in complete stillness where all things dissolve. Perhaps they reached the stillness, and then activity started up in their mind again, but the momentum of their senses was not strong enough to pull them out of full concentration. So they experience light forms, impressions, or even conversations with other beings. That's cool. But after the event, they reflect on the state and describe it in various colorful ways that feel engaging, attractive, fantastical. And upon hearing this, someone might assume that these things must always happen in that way, and then proceed to cultivate in order to reach that exact experience. If that particular expression it doesn't arise, they could assume that they did something wrong. Usually it goes that way. Eventually, through consistency, a person may reach a state where they do have experiences like that, but they can't tell if it was because the state truly unfolded that way or was their imagination. That line is subtle, hard to catch, very blurry. And this is why a cultivator doesn't expect absolutes on the path of refinement. The cultivator eventually recognizes what influences their mind and learns to distinguish between imaginative events and events that occur due to effort, clarity, and refinement, not perspective bias. This is also why when I teach, I don't tell people what they should and shouldn't experience, outside of the general and basic happenings. That way, what they experience in cultivation is based on their mind alone. And with that, they have the responsibility, the task, the journey to investigate their own mind, reveal the deep influences behind what they assume. Right? The responsibility is always back on the cultivator. The cultivator always has to question themselves, investigate why, who, what, when, where, how. Why do you need to do this? Because we will associate whatever we can to make sure that we are right. We will always rationalize. We will always come to some point of, well, this is logical. Well, this makes sense. This is reasonable. And when we do that, we're just putting more distance behind the realization, behind the revelation of what is actually going on. The examples here are clear. You can read about stories of ancient sages or, ancient cultivators, or watch movies about these amazing spirituals, anything happening, and assume there must be some truth to it. How did they know? Well, there's some truth to some stories. However, within that truth, not all of it is exactly the way things would be. And exactly the way things would be is always going to be based on the person experiencing them, because it is of their mind. I'll give you one more example. If you're cultivating a mantra and the mantra has a particular function to it, and you know the function to it, and you recite the mantra, and you're cultivating the mantra daily, and you're really working on that single-minded absorption focus that builds up that ability, that skill and means to apply this mantra, and you start to get states. Well, you've been planting seeds of the mantra's purpose in your mind. So it's inevitable you will get states of what that mantra is, putting out, what it's supposed to do. And let's say you don't know any idea of the mantra whatsoever. You had nobody planted any seed in your mind about what a mantra would do for you. You just wanted a mantra, you found it, and you do it. Let's say there's no context behind it. I'm just going to go look for a mantra. And you just find a mantra. You don't even read what it's about. You don't read what it does. You don't read anything at all. You don't even know the language it's in. And you just read it. What are you going to experience? I can't tell you, because that's really on you. However, what generally can be said is that you will experience whatever your mind is nourishing. So if the mantra is anything positive and you have no clue, no context, no nothing behind it, you just get the mantra and you just read it and you cultivate it, but you don't know anything about it. No one tells you anything. You don't even look to research on it. You're just reading it. But it's a positive meaning. So you don't even know that. What do you think you're going to feel? Maybe you'll feel positive. Maybe you'll feel negative. Generally, you will get a state of something. But that's really going to end up just being based on your own strength in maintaining focus to cultivate whatever that thing is. Another example, I used to play a recitation of Amitabha Buddha's name in my cultivation school. I had many different types of students when I was teaching martial arts and cultivation. When it was time for the martial art training, I had many different backgrounds of students. Okay, they had different types of religions, and I would have this playing very lightly, very slowly, very lowly in the background. It was Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitabha Buddha. Nobody knew what it meant. It was just playing. So one day, one of the students comes up to me and he says, What's that music playing in the background? I said, what do you mean? He goes, there's something singing in the background. I don't know what it says, but it's making me feel really comfortable. I feel so peaceful, like I'm at home and I'm just feeling so good. What does it mean? What is it saying? What language is it in? And I said, you have no clue, right? He said, I have no clue. I was like, and you feeling good? He says, yeah, feeling good. Okay. And I explained to him what the mantra is. It's the Buddha's name. It's a recitation of the Buddha's name. Explained to him what it means. And he says, well, that's amazing. So it led me to contemplate. This person, I know him for at least some time at that point. Not an aggressive person, not an angry person, not a frustrated, want to punch walls kind of person. Generally well balanced, emotional, mental, right? The mantra brought more of that out. He wanted to listen to it. He probably assumed it was peaceful because I'm playing it in the cultivation school, in a martial arts school. So he probably thought it was something nice and calming and peaceful. Okay, but that's the framework in which that mantra reached and nourished. Now, I could have been playing something else that meant something horrible. But if he still had that peaceful framework in his mind already, it still would have just gone through a peaceful framework. It's like when you listen to music in another language and you have no clue what that's saying, but you're feeling the rhythm, you're feeling the flow, you're loving the lyrics, you're loving the voice, and you're just jamming to it. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. And then one day you decide to look up the lyrics and it's a totally depressing song, but it made you feel great because everything depends on your mind. That's the point. Whatever you put in your mind will be magnified. Whatever you experience will be magnified. So whenever there's a spiritual experience, so-called spiritual experience, whenever there's some amazing otherworldly thing occurring, if you add to it, you'll experience those additions. If you don't add to it, it'll just be the experience. And when you frame that experience without a bias, how do you frame something without a bias? You have to take a bias. It's like fighting fire with fire, right? Poison to cure poison. When you use an unbiased framework, basically what you're doing is there is no separation. There is no difference. All of this is. And then what is considered spiritual, you experience. What's considered mundane, you experience. There's no difference between the two. What you put is what you get. And that's the point of this episode today. Hope you enjoyed it. Well, it's a pretty long one. But thank you for joining us. I'm a little late on it, but whatever. So many things going on. Have to get to this at some point, and I love doing this stuff. So if you have any questions, comments, feel free to email me at eric@awaken24.com. Check our website, awaken24.com, for new stuff and some updates for you. February 17th, 2026. We have our second volume, Scroll 2 and 3, being published. You can find it on Amazon Kindle and paperback. Pre-orders are available now for the digital version, and everything will be ready to go. So check us out on February 17th, 2026 for Scroll 2 and 3 of the Jiwu Tengo practice. Awesome. Thank you very much. Peace.